What's going on, everybody? It is episode 20 right here on March 10th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It is Changemakers. We've got some really great guests. You've probably seen them before. We have a similar platform, similar audience, and we're really just here to, take back America and change the world by making America a better place. And also, of course, that brings up the whole world. It's great stuff. So we have the American Snippets crew, Barb Allen and Dave Brown, on the show today. We'll be introducing them in just a second, giving you a chance to share this out there. You've probably seen Barb on a couple of our Concert Vengers, as well as Truth Will Set You Free. She's been on some shows with us. Her and her fiance, Dave, are just a tag team for good in this world and good in this country, and just pretty much just trying to build people up around them. I encourage you guys, before we get started, to share this episode out as we are live. The more, the merrier. Keep sharing it out there so that we can have a good conversation, answer any questions you guys might have about what they've got going on with American Snippets and the Great American Syndicate. But yeah, we are excited for this. Please share it out there. This show is more about positivity than politics. However, of course, just based on the nature of our guests, we will have a little bit of political discussion as well. Changemakers starts, and start commenting. Tell me where you guys are from. Tell me where you're watching the show, et cetera, et cetera. We look forward to seeing you guys on Changemakers starting in 30 seconds. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have got another episode of Changemakers. Changemakers, if you haven't had a chance to watch it before, it's a little bit different than Truth Will Set You Free. Changemakers is where we introduce you guys to people that are creating change in the world. And that doesn't mean exactly the same thing for every person. We've had weight loss gurus. We have had people from American Ninja Warrior who are creating charities in their own names. We, of course, had Bob Berg last week, the author of The Go-Giver. And this week, we are very excited to have probably more of a political lean on this show than we typically do on Changemakers, just based on their message. But at the same time, they have the same message across the board as anybody else trying to create change in the world, which is being better inside, externally, being better to the people around you. And it's going to be a phenomenal show. Their background speaks for itself, which is, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, of course, but share this out there. The whole purpose of this show is to highlight those that are creating change in the world. So this is that time where we get to get Be the Change out there and realize that we all have a message, we all have a platform, we all have a way of making the world a better place and showing how to do that. We are taking positivity and making it go viral. If you would like to support our programming, we try not to do the super chats because YouTube, as we know, we're not a huge fan of, and they can demonetize anybody at any given time. So we've got Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, as well as our Patreon. If you want a little bit extra, Patreon's a spot to go because I do motivational Mondays, and sometimes we throw up weekly videos. If anybody out there is still trying to follow Cash and where he is, we try to make as many updates as we know on there. If anybody does want to know, Cash is currently in DC at the moment. He got transferred over there for that trial, and we are kind of waiting to have contact with him there. He has spoken with Erica this week. I see a bunch of comments. Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody watching from Northern California. Got people in Alabama, Illinois, Michigan, Oklahoma, etc. Great change. You haven't invited me to teach. Well, now I know. I mean, I already knew you did that, but yes, we got to talk. So Shirley, I will have you on the show. With that said, let's talk about this week's guest. We've got the co-creators, co-founders of American Snippets, a fiance duo. They will be getting married, I believe, later this year. They may not know this yet, but I am an ordained minister. We can talk. Anyways, totally different. I see them chuckling in the background. I'm not gonna lie, I do stand-up comedy for 20 minutes. It's the best wedding you'll ever have. They're also change makers in their own right. Barb is a gold star wife, and Dave is an absolute rock star in terms of not just behind the camera, but in front of the camera and understanding the world of politics and creating change. So we are excited to have them. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're at home right now, which you probably are, or on your cell phones, round of applause for the American Snippets team of Barb Allen and Dave Brown.
Hello.
What's up, everyone?
The only reason I laughed, Anthony, is because my oldest son is also an ordained minister. He just sent the this stuff out. And I'm like, that's tough competition. But
Well, if you need a call to the bullpen for a right-hander, you know where to go.
Excellent. Thank you.
So go ahead and introduce, no problem. Thank you guys for being on. For those of you guys that don't know who Barb and Dave are, go ahead and introduce yourselves just as individuals, and then we'll talk about American Snippets, of course.
Me first, I guess. Okay, so yeah, I'm Barb Allen. I am the co-founder of American Snippets. I was a former Veterans Services officer, and now I'm entrenched in this world of American Snippets with my fiance. How I got started down this path. One day I was the quote normal mom and housewife, and my husband was deployed to Iraq. And I was home with my 4 little kids, and my doorbell rang at 6 a.m. in the morning, the worst doorbell ring ever you could get. The military was there to tell me my husband had been killed in Iraq. That was 2005. My 4 boys were just 6, 5, 3, and 1-year-old at the time. And that sent me into a world that I just didn't recognize, a world of a capital court martial, because my husband had been murdered by another soldier who was then acquitted 3.5 years later in what we call the military's version of the O.J. Simpson trial. So all of that, why I'm even going into all that, is because that sent me down on a path that I think a lot of people are familiar with, the feeling of just going down this past year, right? But what goes down must come up. Hopefully people come up quicker than I did. It took me 10 years to find my footing after that. But I learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I've learned even more since then. What's really important to me is preserving and protecting the country and the core values that my husband gave his life in service of. And that's, what has sent us down this path and brought Dave onto this path. But I met Dave, and we put 2 and 2 together, and here we are, American Snippets.
I love it. Dave, go ahead and tell a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been pretty much self-employed or an entrepreneur my entire adult life. Never really had a 9-to-5 job, never collected a W-2 or anything like that. My father passed away when I was very young. I was only 3 years old when he actually took his own life. So that was a big catalyst for me in terms of when I had my own children. That became my calling, my life's, my why, if you will, to be the father to my kids that I never had. And so based on that, time was a huge component of that. So I was never going to give up, time for money. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too, if you will. So that's why I decided to become an entrepreneur, because it was the only vehicle that I could do to where I could still utilize and capture that time to be able to spend with them. I decided I would never miss a dance recital. I would never miss a practice. I would never miss anything with my kids that I needed to be there for, So that's why I became an entrepreneur. And then I slowly got into real estate investing. And over the past 4 years, I've coached over 120 students through my mentor, Kent Clothier, and his company, Real Estate Worldwide, how to do things like wholesaling and rehabbing houses and things like that. And I still do that, today. It's still I have a couple businesses in that niche, in that space. And then, Barb and I met after I went through a bad divorce, and the 2008 housing collapse totally decimated me. I lost houses. I filed Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It was ugly. And then I started to rebuild, and Barb and I met. My real estate investing business took off, and I've always gravitated towards, online marketing and coaching and helping people. But I was, in terms of the patriotism part, I always felt I was patriotic, but that kind of just 10x'd when I met this lovely lady here. So.
Yeah. So what year did you guys actually meet in?
Like 6 years ago.
Yeah, this is our 7th year.
This anniversary time is going to be super awkward. You're not going to know when to, is today? Is it actually? It was 3 weeks ago. Yeah, that was, yeah. So that's hilarious. It's good. Babe. Okay. That's awesome. Your guys' stories are above and beyond obviously the norm of a lot of the people we have on the show, because individually you guys have gone through your own trauma, your own stuff that would create victim mentality out of almost anyone these days. And you guys have persevered to actually change the dynamic, Dave, you realized what happened to you, and you wanted to be better for your family, and you chose something actively to make things better, to actually take action to make better. And Barb, the same has gone for you as well. And now you're almost paying tribute to your past by trying to change the minds of the country to be stronger. So now let's talk a little bit about what came first. Was it the Great American Syndicate or American Snippets?
Snippets, American Snippets.
Yeah. Why don't you tell them who actually came up with the concept and the name and how it took off?
Back in 2016, right before that election, I think, so I had only like recently started to really come out of, honest to God, 10 years of alternating between professional victim and, champion of my life, right? I couldn't decide which I wanted to be. So I'd only recently decided to, kill the victim and move on. And I was still, how that actively takes, you have to protect that and nurture that every day, right? And so I was feeling in a good place, but I noticed the negativity in the country begin to really rise up then. And part of that negativity was people just bashing our country in general. For me, that's when I first noticed it, because I first started paying attention. I was working as a professional veteran services officer, which was a very difficult job for me, rewarding, but difficult. And, so I noticed that I would turn on the news, I was just getting more depressed every day instead of I was reversing my progress, and I didn't understand why. And then I realized one day, I'm like, oh my God, all I'm hearing is bullshit about this country. Everybody's bitching and moaning and crying and complaining. And I'm like, people hate our country. And to me, it felt like people were turning their backs on this country, that I was still so emotionally raw from the pain of the loss. And it sort of felt like they were pouring salt in that wound, and I was like, well, this is not the country my husband died for. And I was like, I also know that America is better than this. I know Americans are better than what's being put out there, right? Why is everybody buying into all this? And I got really frustrated and angry, and I didn't know what to do with that. I was like, this is a problem. I don't know how to solve it. And fortunately for me, I met an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs, what do? They solve problems, right?
We figure shit out. That's what we do.
Figure shit out. I'm like, oh my God, Dave, I can't stand it, and on. And he's like, well, it started his wheels turning. And then I went into work one day, and a Vietnam veteran was telling me about a project he wanted to do, and he wanted to call it American Snippets. And I said, oh, wow, that's a really cool name, And I went home to Dave. I told him American Snippets. He's like, that's an amazing name. We need to do American Snippets. We need to start our podcast. And it was it just turned on in his head then. I got permission from the Vietnam veteran to use that American Snippets name. I had to talk with him, and we wrote an article about him and how he inspired the name.
Yeah. Got the website, bought the domain on GoDaddy, all that good
stuff.
Stuff.
Within a day, he had bought the domain. You don't tell an entrepreneur something that they think is a really great idea if you're not ready to do it, right?
It sounds familiar.
You don't want the 18 years of raising a kid, right? So I just said to him, I'm like, this is what we're doing. And all of a sudden we had American Snippets, and off we went.
Yeah, I think it's weird. It's kind of like people look at we started looking at the country differently than we look at every other circumstance in this world. It's like it had to either be, do you love this country, everything about it, right, or do you think it's horrible, everything? How can we love this country with its history? And it's like, what if you looked at marriage like that? There is no marriage that is this is 1,000,000% perfect, and it sets it up for can't you just go we have flaws. There is no way to not look at the last 300 years or forever in this world, let alone our country, and not think that there's flaws and things we need to correct. There's things we need to correct now. But if you don't love the country that you live in, why are you here? If you don't feel as though you can have opportunity, there is a lot of other places pre-COVID that you could move to and travel to. So what good does it do to hate the place that you live, especially knowing that we have such a large veteran population that is struggling? And that's one, honestly, that's, if you want to ask me what our current weakest point is, it's the way we treat veterans in this country. And it's interesting that to me, it seems very, very counterproductive personally. So,
yeah. Look, we all
Dave,
have our own personal flaws, right? And that doesn't mean we
Yep.
don't love ourselves anymore, right? I think the fact that
Right.
we have such a checkered past in this country is why we should love our country so much, because you see how much improvement we've made as a society over time. We've always been a free society. Not everyone in the society was free at the time, but we corrected those wrongs and made them right. Even women couldn't vote back in, right? I mean, they had a march on Washington to get that to happen, but we always improve as a society. And there's a reason why tens of thousands of people every single year, probably millions, want to come to this country to make something of themselves, to chase the American dream. It's because people talk about privilege. I don't want to go down that road right now, but in my opinion, the real privilege is that we live in the United States of America. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what we wanted to showcase with, starting American Snippets, is like, look, this country is great. There's a lot of great people who are doing amazing things. And we kind of wanted to showcase the best of America and make freedom and personal responsibility kind of like the leading charge with that,
Yeah. And I think there's always different degrees of privilege. And I know we don't want to talk about privilege and go too far into that, because that's a rabbit hole that gets really ugly really fast. But there is no way for perfect utopian equality in this world. And the sooner that people realize that, the better off we can be as Americans to realize we have opportunity. It's varying degrees, and it's not always based off of skin color. It's more socioeconomic issues that sometimes do have a core root in different backgrounds and different ethnic backgrounds, and that's progressing. It's been progressing, and I wish we all wish, and I think that's something as our side of the aisle would say, or I would say the constituents like us would say, is, of course we want all these things. We would love for immigrants to be able to come to America and have a great world, a great new perspective, and a great new country. We believe that all poor people should be fed. We believe that everybody should have health insurance, but there is levels that we have to face in order to pragmatically make corrections as we go and make things better. You just can't all of a sudden give everything away. Otherwise, guess what? We're no longer America anymore in terms of our strength numbers and our financial stability, which is already in question just because of the way the world is these days.
Yeah.
So what kind of cool stuff have you seen and cool guests? Like what's been some of your just amazing guests? Because that's one thing on American Snippets. You've had, for your podcast and for your network, you've had some just absolutely rock star people on there. So what's been some of your impact?
Yeah, of course we had you. And what you just mentioned brings that right into play. You're talking about, like, we want immigrants to come to this country and succeed and thrive. One of the favorite kind of guests, I always say this with our guests, right? But I really love interviewing people like Patrick Bet-David, Bedros Keuilian, Hamidi Jassim has like a crazy story, right? Fahim Fazli. We've interviewed so many people who have come to this country, fled communist regimes. My friend Eric, I mean, I could go on and on. So they have fled communist regimes. Some of them spent years in refugee camps. They, as teenagers, young kids, they came here. Bedros dumpster dive to feed his family. A lot of them get run-ins with the law. They go really down. They come and they go down. But what they have in common, they have parents who were resilient and strong and taught them to overcome and persevere, and taught them that the short term is going to be difficult, but the long term is going to be amazing, and just reinstilled like positivity in them, right? And then now they're like gazillionaires, like succeeding and thriving and giving back. Some of them go on to serve in the military once they come here.
Yeah, Patrick
Bet-David did, and Eric did. And so they serve the military because they want to give back to the country that's given them so much, right? And now they continue to give back in their own ways. I love those people. That they have so many messages in their story from business. I mean, they can teach you everything you ever wanted to know about business, and they can teach you. They just refresh the memory and the mindset and the mind that this is still an amazing country. And every single one across the board is like, what are you people doing to this country? Like, we just got out of that. Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why are you going here? It's like if I got out of one abusive relationship just to get into another one. Like, why would I do that? And so
ask those people who fled those circumstances, whether America is the greatest country in the history of the world. And they will tell you point blank that it is. Someone like Patrick Bet-David, I think he was 10 or 12 years old. He remembers with his mom or his aunt or something, they were crossing a bridge, and just as they got across the other side, a bomb came down and destroyed the bridge. Right. And I think Iran, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, so you just hear stories like that from these people who've come here.
There's their parents driving. Don't look back, kids. It's all fine.
Yeah.
Like.
And they've built incredible lives, incredible businesses. They're empowering other people. They're coaching other people, mentoring other people. So they came from the worst of the worst, and they came here because at the time their parents and themselves thought it was the best of the best. And, in my opinion, it still is.
And how were they able to build? They were able to build because they had positive mindset. They saw opportunity. Go ahead.
One kid came here on his own. Is 15 years old, and he fled a communist regime. And he was again on his own in America. 15 years old. He found his own language school. He found his way to earn money. He got a room somewhere. He went to high school. He worked odd jobs, and he's worked his way up, and he eventually won an Emmy for his work, and he's just the nicest person. And, so anyway, these stories, I love interviewing them. I love interviewing those people because they just really, that's what America is. That's how we want people to come here. Not that we want people to struggle and suffer when they get here. Right. And that definitely needs to be addressed and made better for people who have good intent and come here. But it's gotten too far the other way, which we also won't go into. But
everything's for the taking.
Everything's about balance.
The American dream is real. It's
just,
the question is 100%. How bad do you want it? How hard are you willing to work for it? I dealt with this all the time with coaching people and real estate. It wasn't about coaching them how to do real estate or coaching them how to do wholesaling or flip a house or rehab a house. It really wasn't about any of that. The coaching was really life coaching. It was how do I get out of my own way so I can, do the things I need to do to be able to be the person I need to be, to have the things that I want to have. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people won't get out of their own way. They won't do what it takes. They just won't. They either have fear, they have setbacks, they have excuses. When at the end of the day, if they really want it bad enough, they'll figure out a way to do it. Like I've said before, one of the things one of my mentors always talked about constantly, it's not about the resources that you have, it's about how resourceful you are, right? And the people that work hard, luck comes to those who work the hardest and push the hardest to achieve their dreams, right? People aren't just naturally lucky. They don't naturally just become successful, right? It's the hard work that triggers that luck, that triggers that compound effect, that where they ultimately reach the pinnacle and the success that they desire and want. And the people that we have on the podcast, especially all the immigrants who have those amazing stories, I mean, they are proof of it. Living examples, living, breathing examples.
Yeah, I think the ultimate privilege for them is the privilege of positive attitude, realizing that words matter, knowing that, you have gratitude for where you are and the opportunity. If you don't think you've got opportunity, there's nowhere for you to grow. So just because your circumstances suck, that's a new way to look at privilege based on what I just heard you guys say. Privilege means that the ability to understand positivity, gratitude, and a just dog eat world work ethic. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but you know what I mean. Just something insane that will make you
anymore.
And that's what we like to show.
You just offended a dog somewhere.
A speciesist or whatever.
American Snippets is we want to introduce those people and those stories and their experiences, to our audience, right? We have don't just be inspired, be exceptional, right? Use the stories and the lessons that you learn to go out there and take those lessons and those insights and turn them into action in your own life.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so Eric, we don't want to just entertain people. We want to you got to turn them on and give them somewhere to go, and that's why we moved into the syndicate. And we decided to center on the pillars of the syndicate and collaborate with people like you to actually turn that inspiration into action.
Yeah. And that's why I want to talk about what you guys are going on. Erica, let me know. I just took one of my AirPods out on mobile today. So if it's still too loud, let me know and I will talk softer, because I can hear Barb and Dave just fine. So I want to make sure that sounds good for you guys. So with American Snippets, what is the ultimate goal? What are you guys trying to do with that podcast?
Ultimately, we started with the podcast to sort of push back against the negativity. Like that was the only goal we had in mind at that point. I was like, if this negativity is impacting me so deeply, it's got to be impacting other people too. And Dave jumped right in there too. So we began with that in mind, to push back against the negativity and just provide people with the positive outlets, right? But we've evolved since then, and we knew we were going to be evolving as we go. And so now we developed, the pillars. We realize that it doesn't matter who's in office, right? To sit back and depend on the government to solve things isn't the way to strengthen a country. To strengthen a country, you need strong people, you need strong families, you need strong communities, and those together are going to create a strong country. And that's what our syndicate is about, offering the resources and helping people connect and collaborate and conquer all of our challenges together, and to form alliances with people like you to bring the live events, to offer people resources, to send, we get people in, hey, I have this issue. We know who to hook them up with, to follow that on. And so it's just a grassroots movement to stand up for core values, where even speaking up now is a movement. Even just voicing your opinion has become an action, right?
Yeah.
And standing your ground and, explaining what patriotism is, and just speaking your heart has become an issue. So the country took some steps back, so we had to kind of all push through that, as you've experienced as well.
Yeah, be the change, right? I mean, you have to be the change that you want to see in the world. I mean, you have to take that mantle yourself. You never know who is watching. You never know who you're going to influence, who you're going to impact. I mean, we started from the grassroots. No one knows, who the hell we were. We had no business starting any of this. You could say, like people could say, we weren't influencers or, super uber successful entrepreneurs. But I would push back on people that would say that, because we're all influencers. We all have the ability to influence and impact someone else with our story, with our experiences. And if you can just impact one person, then you win. You did your job. You put positive energy out there into the universe, and that's going to come back to you tenfold as long as you continue on that path. And that's what we're committed to.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot, just the concept of ripple effect, having that. If I were to go and affect 10 people directly and they didn't affect anybody else, that's great. I've helped 10 people. But if I help the one right person, and you don't know when that one person comes along, they could change the world. And essentially that's connected to you. It's like one gigantic game of positivity, multi-level marketing. And yeah. we all have our downlines. And if we look at things like that, and the ability for this ripple effect, and yeah, you're right. Like when I started BetheChange in 2016, the concept was anti-awareness, pro-action. But right now there is still the ability to act, go beyond our politics, but part of it is speaking up. And we both have pretty conservative audiences, and it's not even about politics. It's about allowing people to realize that they're no longer alone in the world, and allowing them to speak up. And the more people that speak up, the less hate there'll be. It might be hard at first to hear. People might have trouble stomaching it, and it could be divisive at first. But in the end, if one side just shuts up and just gets walked over and says your ideas don't matter, in the end that just creates a giant under the ground that at one point they will explode, and it will get ugly. It will become war. It could become something really bad. Whereas if they continue to feel emboldened to speak up from a non-hateful perspective and say, I feel this way and I'm a good person and this is why, then all of a sudden we have a country that can actually have a conversation again, and we can go back to agreeing to disagree. How amazing would that be? Yeah. So, and I love what you guys are doing on your podcast, and the ones that I've listened to all have that very similar message. And you also have really cool people that are essentially giving these amazing stories. But you guys have a lot of great, cool stuff also coming up besides that, where you guys have your first event coming up. And I know, Barb, you got another book coming up. So first, go ahead and tell me about the event that you guys have been working on through COVID.
Yeah, this has been the longest planned event ever, but
a lot of mistakes, a lot of failures, and
a lot of expensive mistakes.
Yeah.
But you know what? I actually am so glad now, because I feel like this has all led us to the path where we are now, like where we are connecting and working with you now. And it's going to make this event even bigger. The Great American Summit, I think powered by BetheChange, however we word that, right, is going to be, now it's going to be in Texas, and we're shooting for a November date. We'd like it right around the anniversary of the election that took a little plot twist, right? So we'd like to add a little different plot twist on November 4th, make it a day to celebrate instead of cringe about, right? And so in Texas, that's our plan. And it is going to be bringing everything we talked about to life in the first person, where now we have the podcast and we have our online community, the Great American Syndicate, and we do our coaching and mentoring and our social media just like you do. But we're going to bring this all to stage with people like you and people we've interviewed to bring these lessons on strengthening yourself, your family, and your community to help us all work together to strengthen our country that way. And while we're encouraging politics to be set aside, just the fact that we're patriotic brands us as conservative, or brands us as one way, but we certainly are inviting people from all walks to be a part of this. That's the point, so we can all kind of work together to strengthen things. And every dime that's raised is going to be put back into our endowment fund to be distributed to nonprofits that support military, first responders, law enforcement. He's a mess. And
it supports military. WAP.
Very dramatic.
Yeah, so essentially it's a nonprofit event, right?
Yeah.
All net proceeds from the event are going to go to charity.
Because that's our message. We're going to put the money where our mouth is, right? And we want people to show up and know that just by showing up, they've donated and contributed to these amazing causes that are doing exactly that, strengthening families, communities in the country just by attending. So just like that, like they've already implemented the first step.
Excellent. Robert's watches almost every show you have. If you want to know how late you are not quite having the baby, but you are definitely pregnant. So you are 100% late. So I'm just going to throw that out there. You can watch it afterwards. Angela answered. Excellent. So with that event, and I know you guys haven't, because it has been up in the air. We don't, with COVID, with being a conservative group, even though, we know it's just hard to find venues and stuff like that. For anybody that's out there, I know a couple of the people that might be speaking. It's going to be an amazing event. They're not, obviously we're not disclosing, they're not disclosing, but if they want, if anybody, the followers that want to follow this event, where would they best find you guys for that?
Hop on americansnippets.com. You find all of us there. Our podcast, there's a link to events.
Yeah.
There's the blog and information. Everything you want is at americansnippets.com.
Yeah. Sell apparel and merch, and links to our social media profiles, Instagram and Facebook are good places at American Snippets.
Yeah, I was actually about to say, you guys are, so for people that don't know kind of what's gone on behind the scenes with American Snippets, with Primetime Patriots, hopefully with a couple other individuals that we're working with, is we've started working on how can we all have very similar messages, but all slightly different. So obviously with BetheChange, we've got some of our conversation shows where we bring people in with Truth Will Set You Free. And then we've got change makers like this. Primetime Patriots is essentially just trying to hammer news updates in there that are definitely conservative by tone, but not by spin. We're all of us, I think, are very anti-spin. And then Barb and Dave with American Snippets and the Great American Syndicate, they are highlighting patriotic stories is the best way that I can show, and showing why we should take pride in this country. So we all have a very similar message. So we're all essentially getting involved with each other. We're still navigating that path, but it's going to be very, very, very cool for these groups to get together. I think this is the most I've ever said cool in an episode of anything that I've done since I was like 13 years old. So that's cool, dude. So americansnippets.com, and they have very similar cool merchandise to, I did it again, Primetime Patriots. So all very similar stuff like that. Also, my mom lately has been telling me I say stuff too much. So now I'm just using all these filler words, freaking out over here. With that, you also, Barb, you're an author. You've had a couple books out there, and you've got a third one coming. And before we get done, Dave, I do want to go back into your story as well. But let's go ahead and cover your maybe whatever. Barb, tell a little bit about the book that you've got coming out, and maybe one of the other books that you've been a part of. You guys are killing me. You guys are funny.
I knew he was going to say that. Yeah, so this is my third book, third time's the charm. You know, the first two I wrote and I'm still proud of, wrote them in different places in my life. And this one, I actually learned the nuances of selling a book. Imagine that. In addition to just writing it, you know, and I just dialed it down. This one I wrote with a clearer intent. It's called What Not to Wear to a Murder Trial and Other Tips Tragedy Taught Me. So, you know, it's definitely a book you can, you know, pick up and read on a plane. Just don't take your mask off, you know, but read it on a plane, or, you know, read it, you know, quicker than a full length novel. And it just, all these lessons, it's the book that I wish I had when I was trying to figure out how to navigate all the stuff that was coming at me, not just immediately, but, you know, in the years after, and how to brace yourself for that impact. So, you know, how to like get that mindset and everything you need to do in order, so that when something like COVID hits or life spins just like overnight, you're not like down on the ground longer, you know, while other people are up and running. You have a quicker recovery time than that. And so I love this book. I brought in excerpts from people that we've interviewed to share their stories and their tips and their insight. And I'm super excited about it. I just got my release date is supposed to be July 22nd.
So you couldn't plan it on July 4th. Super patriotic. You had to wait
July
until
20th,
July
birthday. Yeah.
Right? Jeez.
A lot of birthdays.
You guys since you guys don't know when your anniversary is, you guys can make that your random anniversary.
Dude,
you just don't even know what year.
His birthday is my husband's birthday, my son's birthday, and my husband's father's birthday.
Shut up.
Yeah.
What are the odds of that one?
Apparently they're pretty fucking good.
And what also people don't know, this is actually funny, is Barb, they have a dog by the name of Woody, and a lot of you guys that watch the show know that I have a dog by the name of Woody, and the girl that I'm dating is last name of Allen. There's a whole lot of idiosyncrasies in this whole thing. You guys have the same birthdays. We've got the same dog. It's, you know, the universe knows how to put people together. So,
it does.
Dave, you talked a little bit in the beginning just about some of the way that you have spoken to people. You've been a coach, you've been a business coach. You chose to become an entrepreneur because of your life experiences. And again, a big thing that really creates change in the world is by people not feeling alone. And just based on your own experience, what are some things that you try to tell people that you've learned throughout your life in order to impact those around and to get through tough times and to get through those moments?
Just kind of, you know, start off by just being true to who you are, and think about one of the first lessons I ever got when I personally got coaching was figuring out what my why was. So if you've never done this exercise, like, what's your why? What drives you in life? What do you get out of bed for in the morning? And it can't be like simple. It should be something very emotional that moves you, that almost brings you to tears. And if it doesn't, you're not going deep enough. And so for me, it's really easy, because I even get emotional just talking about it now. Like, you know, not having my father and losing my dad, and then my kids are here, you know, like, all that for me, I look at it as an opportunity. Like, it all happened for a reason. And if I squander that opportunity and I don't follow through with, you know, with who I think I am and who I want to be, then that's when you become that's when you fail. It's always taking that step, moving forward, moving forward, and moving forward. As long as you're moving forward towards your goals, you're a success. You're winning.
Yeah.
It's when you step backwards and give up, that's when you lose. So, you know, it's be the victim or be the victor, right?
Yeah. The way I phrase it is a little different, but it's we all are going to fail. Failing is completely fine, but being a failure is something very different. Exactly. Being a failure is those that can't keep moving forward through failing. And and not being able to handle the setbacks. I mean, gosh, I mean, look at 2020 and not being able to handle those setbacks, just, it puts you in a completely different place. And finding your why is interesting. Actually, one of the guests we had on Changemakers was Minji. It's funny. Her and I was on her show, and then she came on mine. And I, as a coach, had never actually expressed what my why was. Never got into the Simon Sinek, what's your why? Like, I'd read it, and I'm sure I got a why. I got a why, but I don't know. I didn't really know what it was. And a lot of people say it's their kids. A lot of people say it's their significant others, their spouse, whatever it is, and they have a specific reason. I just knew that I was very driven without it. Without specifying. But then during COVID, I just told this story on a show I did right before this. The gentleman that was on one of our first shows, Dr. Frank, if anybody is in the comment box that remembered Biscuits and Gravy, we did shows together, had laughs. He was somebody that I would have never met if it wasn't for COVID, because we ended up doing these shows together. He was a friend of a friend and became very, very close, talked a lot offline, talked not just about comedy, but talked about the political world we were in, talked about finding hope, finding conversation. And I didn't know until he passed away. So it's funny, I would have never met him without COVID. And then because of COVID, I'll never actually meet him in person. But he passed away, and I had a pre-show interview with Minji, and she said, "What's your why?" And it finally hit me in that moment, because he had just passed away within 24 hours of that. And one of his friends had called me and said, "You don't even realize that in the last couple months of his life, he was looking at the world spiraling. And he was looking at how terrible things were, and people weren't having conversations." And he talked so expressively about BetheChange, and specifically about me, and how I gave him faith that the world could be better. And in that moment, when he passed away, and when I heard that, I realized what my why was. And it's not the normal. It's not, the kids or the family. It was to be able to have an impact on individuals so that they understand their place in this world, and that we could actually become a better place. So finding that why as a coach and as a speaker and as a person, individual, it's huge. So it's a great message, Dave.
It's like the flag that you stick in the ground, like it's your guiding principles, along with knowing, what you stand for and what you stand against. And if all of us just learn to kind of take a step back sometimes when we're inundated with everything on the news and, social media, keyboard warriors and everything else, and maybe we just go outside and kind of talk to our neighbor a little bit, you realize we're a lot closer and more alike than we think. And there's a lot less division than we could ever possibly imagine. We are closer and more united than anyone could ever think. You just have to go out and talk to people.
100%. I don't know who. There's a new viewer in there, Demonium Venator. I don't know what I'm probably saying at once. I'm probably saying like Amanda Hug and Kiss, but he's just rattling off these killer antidotes. The light bulb's created through 1,000 failures. I usually use that in my speaking. You can master anything. You have 10,000 hours to it. You will fail, and failure is inevitable to anyone who's successful. So I don't know who you are, but he's just piping these in. I love it. So with we didn't really talk, so help me with this too. The difference between essentially the concept between Great American Syndicate and American Snippets, how do they work together?
American Snippets it's our primary platform. It's our stage, right? It's how we reach people and connect with people, and especially our Facebook page. We do differently than the podcast. The Facebook page is all like either positive news, or we throw some red meat conservative stuff out to just speak our voice, really speak our truth. And that's grown. You saw last month we had like 1 million visitors to that page, literally like over 1 million visitors to that page. And that's how we reach out and capture people through that way, right? And just to give you something good when you're scrolling through and looking at all the crap, people needs like something to refresh, so we offer that there. The podcast is where we bring those guests to you, and the podcast is again how we get like a little deeper into it, and we talk about the topics. And that's where the people who want more than like a quick fix on social media, like a quick meme or something, they want to like think more and challenge themselves more and do that. So they get interested through the podcast, and they want to learn more like about the platform and who we are. And we mentioned the Great American Syndicate. So the podcast, it's like, the one reaches another. If you like this family member, you're gonna like that family member, and we just bring them into the community that way. And so the syndicate feeds off everything that the guests on our show have to teach, the syndicate puts into action there and allows people to connect directly with each other. And we're moving to another platform even that's going to make that cooler.
Yeah.
Right. You can see where the people are from, who's online, connect directly, and all this stuff. And
yeah, I mean, it's Snippets is where we push out, our content. It's where we build a following, but having a following is not necessarily having a community. It's just a following. Right. And so we want to create, it's a synergetic, it's kind of, they're kind of tied together. We have the community aspect, or we have the American Snippets aspect where it's content and everything else. But we want to create real community culture, people who are aligned with the same vision and message and same beliefs, people who are personal responsibility, believe in liberty, believe in limited government, believe in equality for all, believe in opportunities for all, and kind of bring those resources and those people together inside of the community so we could all network together and build a better country by focusing on our own community.
And we just hit our first milestone there. We just sent out our first check because our portion of our membership fees go to the endowment fund, and we donate that out every month to a nonprofit. And we got to send out our very first check, which was exciting for us because, again, just like with the event, we want to show people that just by being involved, you're making a difference. Like just by showing up, sometimes all you have to do is show up, right? So just by showing up, people are making a difference. And if we can get more people to just show up with intent every day. And once you realize that just by showing up, like, hey, oh my gosh, I did something good today, right? That turns something on in somebody's brain, and it makes you think differently. And just, it starts this whole chain of events. And so we're super psyched to have donated that back. We gave it to the Chris and Taya Kyle Foundation this month.
One of my favorite books is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Great book. And, there's, I don't know, a lot of you probably heard the story before, but if you compound a penny every day, right, it grows to this, in 30 days, it grows to this huge amount, right? And so it's our community, the Great American Syndicate, we're looking at it as that compound effect, right? Together, we can all achieve more. And so the more members we have, the bigger impact we can make each month to the charities that we're going to all support as a community. So if 25% of all the membership dues each month go to charitable organizations, and we cut our first check for $500 this month, and then in a couple of years we have, say, 10,000 members, we're making big impact. We're donating tens of thousands of dollars each and every month together as a community, as one unit, and that's the compound effect of growing our community and our membership. It's a coalition is how I look at it. A coalition of like-minded people who want to create change in the world.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny timing that you said what you guys both said. Jennifer's comment says, I don't know how yet, talking about her why, but I try every day, because she said she feels like she's supposed to be helping people. I don't know the how yet, but I try every day in my interactions with people. That's it. That is the first, like I don't know how to help. Start by being kind. Start by trying to make somebody smile in the world around you. Start by anything that you can do. And if there is an organization you can get involved with, that if you don't have the money, but they're spending it and they're doing things, we all really, if you want to have effort, and if you want to create change enough or be a part of change enough, it just takes a little bit of effort to kind of get out of your head and think that, oh my God, I'm not giving $1 million to charity. No, it doesn't matter. You find what you can, you start small, and that can grow bigger than anybody can possibly imagine.
And so you see, never quit, don't give up. Like those are key, phrases and quotes for a reason. Everything takes more time, energy, and money than you could possibly imagine when you're starting out, any kind of endeavor, whether you want to lose 20 pounds, you want to start a business, you want to impact people, you want to do charitable work. It's always going to take more time, energy, and money than you can ever imagine. So just be patient and stay committed, to the path, to your path.
Right. Yeah. So the last question I have for you guys before I have you guys send us off with positive words for suggestions to create change is, Dave, I know some of the things I've seen when we've talked about a little bit is before you met Barb, you were not huge into, politics wasn't really as much on your radar. What inspired you to get involved? Was it Barb's background with veteran lifestyle, or what caused you? What was your trigger to realize that you needed to get more involved in being a patriot?
her story, her experience, the loss of her husband. It gets very personal and gets very real. So I think a lot of people in this country take this country for granted, like, because we live and we go about our lives day to day, but sometimes we lose sight of freedom isn't free. Like, there's a cost to it. And being with Barb, like, I saw that cost firsthand when I read her book, and it was a tremendous impact. And so it drew me in closer to that, wanting to support our veterans, our military, those people who are on the front lines, our police, our first responders, who are protecting people, defending freedom, promoting freedom. And so that was the catalyst for me that drew me in. It was her story. It was like a light bulb went off. Like, I could be more engaged in this. I should be more engaged in it. It's almost my duty as an American to be.
Yeah, and I mean, on a completely different level, that is exactly the ripple effect you talked about earlier. And having the conversation, you meet Barb. Barb has an impact directly on you, and you're somebody that is an entrepreneur that has a mindset of how can we take this idea and make it bigger and have more impact and create change in the world, like tangible change. And that little conversation, and now dating, and then being engaged to each other, and having that just creates a syndicate. Creates a group of people. Just, it starts small and can grow by just sharing, by being honest, and by being genuine, and by being decent. So I think that's a great.
And it worked in reverse with Barb, like, with the entrepreneur side of me, like, it was like it was the flip of it to her. You use the analogy of the Reese's, right?
No, the chocolate and peanut butter, right? You put your chocolate in my peanut butter.
Like, hello.
Yeah. You realize that like her philosophies, she realized that your philosophies could be much bigger, and or her mission could be a lot bigger because of it's dual inspiration. We'll call it dual inspiration, dual growth, and that's also not just in the world, but in relationships. That's the key, is finding that ability to grow together and to now find a way to make an impact together.
Yeah. If I could say one more thing, but
you're good.
Part of doing the podcast that we do and the interviews and having these guests on the show, that is growth for us, right? We bring these people into our world because a
lot of whom would charge $10,000 for an hour of their time,
because we want to learn from them. We understand that if you want to be successful, you should surround yourself with other successful people. If there's something that you want to be doing in life, seek out someone who's doing what you want to be doing at a very high level and learn from them. And that's exactly what we're doing, with the podcast. And this is exactly what we plan on doing and are doing with the syndicate as well. And anyone who's listening too, that's what I encourage you to do. If you have a goal or a dream or something you want to start, seek out someone who's at that level, who's doing that thing, and offer to work for them for free. Get their books, watch their videos, follow them, learn from them. Let them be your mentor, your coach. They don't have to be standing there side by side with you and on a call, 20 minutes every single day. We have the internet, we have Google. Go out there and seek the knowledge, and it's there for the taking. I mean, that's a lot of my mentors and coaches I've never spoken to in person. But I've watched plenty of videos from them, like Darren Hardy, right? Compound Effect. Like, I read that book. I followed a lot of stuff that he was teaching, and then there's the next guy that impacts me and moves me. Then I'll start following him, and you grab little nuggets and snippets from each of them, and you just continue to grow and evolve as a person. So, that's why
that's perfect.
A big reason of why we're doing what we're doing is not only to impact others, but to help us continue to grow as well.
That's awesome. It's good stuff. Well, guys, the whole concept of the show is creating change. So we talk about how we've created change in the past. We talk about how we're creating change now, and then last words. What are your guys' visions? And I know you talked about your event. So what is your vision for change in the future? What is your mission, and what do you see? Especially since we've been talking a lot about obviously politics, patriotism, etc. What do you see on how you want to create change in the future?
I love already the feedback I've gotten, like I'll give for instance, and I'd like to multiply this, right? I got a message today from someone in our area who started a business. She started a photography business, and she is like in demand now. And she's always posting these amazingly artistic, beautiful pictures. She takes portraits of people and their families and all this. And this started a few years ago. I needed a headshot, and I said, "Hey, would you do a headshot for me?" She said, "I don't do this professionally." I said, "You really should. You're really amazing at it. I see your pictures." And that was the end of it. I forgot it. And I watched her grow over the years. We stay in touch, but I just got a message from her today sending me a copy of a certificate saying, "Guess who's an official small business now? I started this because of you and the encouragement and all that." And it just feels amazing. And I see the joy she is bringing she brings such joy to people through her gift and through her art, which I didn't even realize was a conversation I had with her a couple years ago, where I guess like I just said the right thing at the right time that she needed to hear. Right. And now she's like off and running and impacting all these people. And that just made my whole like year, everything worth it. Right. So I'd like to magnify that effect over and over and over again. And then I'd love to hear other people say, "Hey, through somebody that you impacted, I started this," that whole ripple effect we talked about. Right.
Yeah.
So for me, in my mind, I'd like to just do that like 1%, and start and just multiply that endlessly.
Really. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Dave, how about you? And then we'll wrap up.
I mean, I'll just leave it with that. I mean, that's pretty much it sums it up.
Mic drop.
Mic drop.
I'm going to quote one friend who was in an interview we did, Linda Romer, Equine Rescue, and this is where I'll wrap it up too.
Yeah.
She said, "We can't all change the world, but we can all tidy up our own corner of it." And I just love that. I love that. She's doing that her way, and that's what we're doing our way. And I think if we all implemented that policy, which we hope to be a catalyst for, that's how we create the change.
100%. So guys, this is one of our shows that we do have on our podcast network. We have now uploaded all of the Conservengers on there as well. So now we've got Conservengers, we have Change Makers, and of course, Truth Will Set You Free. And we're working on getting now also Primetime Patriots Make America Think Again up there as well. Make sure that you follow American Snippets on americansnippets.com. And what's the other one? Great American. I didn't put that on there. Great American Syndicate.
What's on American Snippets?
Yeah, Great American Syndicate.
Okay, and it's also on there. You can find the link. So follow them. Follow their podcasts. I know they've had some great guests, including some fun ones like Bobby Sauce has been on there. Yeah. This guy right here, and then we collaborate on a lot of work together. But again, doing great things.
Yeah.
Ops Lens coming up too. Yeah. YouTube. Yeah. You can find them all there. On all their links, I believe you can start out with americansnippets.com. And again, guys, we all have the power to be the change. We all have the power to create change, no matter how small, no matter how big. It's just about starting, being positive, being kind to somebody. The one verbiage that I could say is the open-mindedness. For a conservative audience, people already think that conservatives are not open-minded. So by being open-minded to the 10th degree, and leading with love, even if you disagree with somebody, that's fine. But listen, be empathetic. That's the first starting point. You can change somebody's day just by listening. If you can't afford to do anything else, listen. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for being on. Barb, Dave, you guys rock. We'll talk soon. And we're wrapping up this show. Thank you guys for watching. Share it out there, and make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to all of our stuff. Good stuff.
Thanks, Anthony.
Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
Nice. Thank you. Yeah.